Garg is our correspondent in India and joins us now live for an update in Ahmedabad. Ishan, a very good morning to you. Give us a sense of occasion as this visit by US President Donald Trump is awaited.
Well, this visit by President Trump is very important both to him and also to the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And it's very important to note here that this visit begins in Ahmedabad, which is Gujarat's capital, and not New Delhi, which is the country's capital. This is the state where Prime Minister Modi ruled as the Chief Minister for 2 consecutive terms. He was here for 10 years, and so this is pretty much his ground. This is pretty much his turf. And what he's trying to showcase in this visit, for the very first day at the very least, is all that's very Indian. I mean, you've got the 2 leaders visiting the Sabarmati Ashram, which is where Mahatma Gandhi lived, and they are inaugurating a cricket stadium. I think it doesn't get any more Indian than this. President Trump is up for re-election, and it's very important for him as well to get that Indian American vote in America. They might be just below 1% of the total population, but they are traditionally well off, and they contribute politically as well. And for Prime Minister Modi as well, this is a welcome move, move away from the recent controversy that has opened up on the citizenship law that provides amnesty to non-Muslim migrants. So both leaders are really looking forward to this visit, and as it is proceeding right now, I'm just minutes away from the Sabarmati Ashram where the 2 leaders are.
What's the sense in India itself? I hear you saying, you're talking about the need to influence Indians living in the US. But what about Indians living in India? How do they feel about this visit?
A lot of people who are traditionally fans of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, just by extension, happen to like President Donald Trump very much. They both are very similar sort of figures. They are populist in their own countries, and they've got just policy-wise, they're very similar as well. In New Delhi and also in Ahmedabad, we've seen a number of pro-right-wing groups organizing massive pujas, which are worships to shower their blessings on President Trump. There's also more than 100,000 people just gathered across the street around the city as well in Ahmedabad, who are just waiting to catch a glimpse of Prime Minister Modi and President Trump. There are a number of people traditionally who support the ruling BJP and the Prime Minister support President Trump, but there's also a little bit of controversy around President Trump's visit here as well. There was news earlier in the past 2 weeks that the local government here in Ahmedabad was erecting a wall to hide slums from President Trump's visit, and that kind of made the became the fulcrum of all criticisms against President's visit. There's also concern that the Indian government is spending way too much money on a 2-day visit by the President of America. But by and large, a large number of Indians are very happy with this visit, and a large number of Indians also happen to like President Trump a lot.
Of course, the visit is about politics and bilateralism, but there are other ways of expressing this, and one of those ways that has come up is the fact that while in India, President Trump will have to live on a vegetable-only diet and will not be eating meat. Is this the case, and is this a big thing in India?
It's difficult, or rather, I don't think it's correct to say that India is by and large a vegetarian country. But just because of where this visit is starting, in Gujarat, in Ahmedabad, this is a largely vegetarian state. And you've got the President and the Prime Minister both visiting Mahatma Gandhi's ashram, who was very famously vegetarian. So you've got a menu that kind of reflects the culture of Gujarat, the food habits of Gujarat, and the people of Gujarat. But I don't think it's going to be a problem. I'm sure there will be a sumptuous meal for both the President and the Prime Minister when they head over to Delhi tonight.
All right, give us a sense of what we can expect to come out of this visit in the end.
Well, First of all, the idea for the visit was that the two leaders will sign a trade deal, but that seems to have fallen by the wayside. President Trump has indicated in the past that India has not treated USA very well, although he also has said that a deal is in works, which might not get announced right away after this visit, but it could get announced sometime after President Trump's election campaign, which is due to happen later this year. What's most important about this visit is the optics that both these leaders are looking for. It's just this procession of thousands of people gathered to see these two leaders is the exact same kind of optics that these two leaders are looking for. You look all across Ahmedabad in Gujarat today, and there are a number of hoardings calling Prime Minister Modi and President Trump the man of the millennia, the people who are going to bring peace, usher peace into the new world order. And this is the exact kind of optics that these two leaders are looking for. And this visit particularly, it seems like this is the reason for this visit as well.
One of the big conversations in India recently has been the citizenship law protests. Will this get in the way of the visit, and how will this conversation be treated by these two leaders? Or how do we expect them to treat this conversation?
The protests are not, by and large, it doesn't look like there'll be a problem during the visit. In Ahmedabad, at the very least, there are pretty much no protests going on against the citizenship law. And again, this particular state of Gujarat is a BJP stronghold. It's very pro-BJP and very pro-Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So there is no indication of any protests as such. When they head over to Delhi, that's another story, because Delhi has been the hotbed of these protests. We've seen protesters sitting for straight 60 to 70 days in Shaheen Bagh in New Delhi, and that's where all that action is happening. But it's very likely that it's not going to be a problem for the visit, because there is heavy security presence all across Ahmedabad, and as it will be in New Delhi, the Indian government is spending close to $12 million on these two visits, on this visit. So there will be no problems to the visit because of the citizenship law. But a number of experts had pointed out that, as President Obama had done in the past, it might be, it's possible that President Trump could speak about the protests and could speak about the spirit of democracy, which a number of critics had said was being quashed by the Indian government in the past few months after this particular law was announced. But it's unlikely that President Trump will say anything or do anything that might be detrimental to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's image while on this visit.
So two big conversations taking place in the world at the moment. The one is climate change, and we know how the American president feels about the Paris agreements. And the other one is the fourth industrial revolution, where again, we know that President Trump's administration is at loggerheads with a Chinese company, Huawei, that is bringing in 5G technology. And India is one of those countries that's considered to be technologically ahead in terms of new innovations. What sort of conversations are we expecting to come out in this regard in terms of climate change and the fourth industrial revolution?
As far as we know, the conversation is not going to be centered around climate change or technology for that matter. The big thing that's going to be the fulcrum of these conversations between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump is going to be a defense deal. It's likely that a multi-billion-dollar defense deal is going to be signed between these two leaders. But apart from that, climate change and information technology as such is not a big part. It's likely that it will not be a big part of these talks.
All right, thank you so much for setting the scene for us there. Ishan Garg coming to us from Ahmedabad. The head of the International